Hey there, this is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss with some guidance about how to develop your skills if you're planning to be a professional orchestrator. Throughout this series of videos, I've introduced the elements of craft, personal and professional resources, work patterns, common errors of approach, and even how to shape your artistic goals. I've basically described what the house of orchestration looks like, where it's located, and how to furnish it. In the next two videos, I'm going to tell you how to walk through the front door. A professional orchestrator who can rely on regular employment has the following 5 essential resources. First, a body of orchestral compositions and arrangements to establish their artistic credibility. Second, a professional network of colleagues, clients, and organizations that's always growing and evolving as the orchestrator's goals mature. Third, expertise with the tools of our craft, which in the current day and age means notation software, and often digital audio workshops if you're a film composer. Fourth, a developed degree of musical literacy, which interrelates what's known and seeks completion in what's yet to be heard. Fifth and finally, a well-developed internal workshop in which inspiration mixes freely with intrigue and imagination with experimentation. Many of my professional colleagues have other strengths as well, like a talent for non-arrogant self-promotion, or the ability to make grants and fellowships rain from the sky. But I'm not aware of any orchestrator with real staying power who lacks these 5 basic traits. Now let's jump back to when today's orchestral composers were just in their developing stage. Back then, the potential to accumulate these resources was in all of them, exemplified by these characteristics: being driven by strong creative impulses, having the ability to communicate their ideas socially, let's call that people skills, possessing a certain adeptness with the tools of music writing, that was pen and ink when I was a teenager, now it's computer skills, reading music notation very easily and naturally, and most fundamental of all, they all had a great deal of musical aptitude. I don't exactly equate aptitude with talent. After having seen a lot of obviously talented students abandon music and then follow other pursuits, and quite a few others who didn't immediately shine eventually make it to the top. My definition of aptitude isn't a gift. It's more of a tendency, a pathway through a frequently thick skull that somehow always stays open. So if you have all of these characteristics, like being musical, notation-friendly, crafty, communicative, and creative, then the question is, how do I get from here to there? How do those aptitudes evolve into dependable, career-strengthening resources? Well, first you have to accept that they're not going to evolve by themselves. You have to want them to develop, sometimes more than you want anything else in life for quite a while. And wanting is just the beginning. You have to then go and apply yourself to each of these strengths, not as an occasional interest, but as a way of life. Each day that you live has to revolve around your music, not your music around the day. There isn't time to go over every step in detail with you about the training and career path you'll need to take. But here's how to build on your strengths in a practical way. Just a disclaimer, everyone's got a different personality and a different life story, so no one can say whether any of this will work for you. But it couldn't hurt to try. Let's start with your first strength. You have the urge to be creative orchestrally, and that is the height of musical art as far as I'm concerned. The first thing you're going to want to do is compose something orchestral, and of course you should try it out. Today's composition students have an enormous advantage of sonic gratification with DAWs and notation software playback. But once you feel confident enough to share your music, I recommend that you take the important step of collaborating with other musicians and artists, and composing for a specific musician or ensemble. That's what turns a student with a few sketches eventually into a composer with several important orchestral milestones. I'll cover this process in great detail in my next intro series video, Getting Performed. But it's the most basic process you can imagine. Find a decent musician, compose them a work, get feedback from them, and learn about their instrument. Rinse and repeat. After a while, the process gets bigger and bigger until you're being asked for works, and then paid for your works. No guarantees, this is up to you and your muse, but that's how I and many of my fellow orchestral composers got to this stage. Now let's move to the next item on the list, communicating your ideas, which I've boiled down to the general term of people skills. Without getting all Dale Carnegie on you here, it really is important to have the words to describe your ideas, the courage to propose them and stick up for them, and the patience and wisdom to get along when people are callous and competitive. The most certain thing you can know right now is that most people around you don't know what they're doing, and they're seldom qualified to judge you. That's what's so important about artistic activities. They help you define yourself in a way that no one else can. You decide what you want to put out there, whether it's a video of your music, or a sound installation in a gallery, or a concert of the works of you and your friends. The activities involved in presenting your art to the rest of the world is a key part of the social fabric of culture, and how this time will be remembered in the future. Each act becomes another piece of your personal history, and connects you more and more strongly to other people. That's where the professional network comes from. Real, practical life experience in the act of getting your music off the shelf and into people's minds. This is heavily tied to the first development path of turning your impulses into commissions. Sometimes the two processes are indistinguishable. There's no question that the two different streams feed each other and help each other to grow. After this comes craftiness, which I've translated for most of my audience as computer skills. But whether you're very adept at the general approach of software, or you prefer to stick to ink on vellum, the way forward to expertise with this craft is in score preparation. To be a competent orchestrator, you have to be able to notate a coherent score, inviting to the conductor's eye. You have to know how to edit, how to see the bigger picture, and how to narrow down to the tiny details that look like nothing but could be fatal to a performance, or get you dirty looks at rehearsal. To me, that is the way to expertise with notation software. I came at it from the other end, originally. I was already an experienced orchestrator before the first programs hit the general market. I was one of those composers putting pressure on the developers to reach ever greater heights of utility and engraving standards. But today's beginning orchestrator will start with the program and learn about scoring in that arena. That's why I strongly recommend training that relies on the established process and principles of arranging and score preparation. It's important to be accurate, coherent, mindful, and quick. That will give you scores that build your credibility with your colleagues and add to your growing body of work at a faster pace. There's no way you can do this without strong notation skills, which are at the heart of orchestrating for concert musicians. It's great that most of my viewers have taken traditional music lessons on piano, or wind, strings, or brass. That's a start. Now you have to develop your ability to perceive many events taking place at once, and chart those events as they stretch across pages of score. I've said this before, and I'm going to keep on saying it until you do it. Score read, score read, score read. But more than this, let your capacity for understanding the structure of concert music inform how you absorb other genres and musical cultures. That will make you musically literate in every way, having the ability to read and hear and understand anything, get wise to the motives and subversions of any piece of music, and notice commonalities in music of many different origins and viewpoints. With a firm grasp on the fabric that connects every note, every sound, then you'll start to sense the thread of your own voice, with a confidence that's much greater for having seen the world and knowing where you stand. You'll have the ability to capture that voice with your expertise, to contrast and resonate with the approaches of your network, and have a life's work that stands on its own, and yet is a part of everything around it. But it's hard to have a strong inner voice without a safe space inside, a laboratory of sounds and textures where you can work things out, and mentally bring to life all that ink on the page. Remember how I said that musical aptitude was a pathway through your skull that always stays open? Think of that pathway as your personal relationship to the very idea of music, that muscle in your brain that's capable of grabbing the moment and preserving its essence. Right now, maybe your inner ear has never had to do more than remember a pop song, but it's capable of so much more. Memorization of vast passages of music, sight reading and sight singing music in every different key, and eventually mentally hearing full scores and resynthesizing organized passages of original symphonic music. Strengthening your inner ear goes hand in hand with a heightened sense of musical literacy and contributes greatly to the success of all your other potential resources. So those are my 5 recommended strategies for development towards the goal of becoming a professional orchestral composer. Have a collaborative relationship with performers and other artists that increases your knowledge while building your body of work. Engage in artistic activities for a greater involvement in the community of the arts. Don't just learn a notation program. Use its features to build your understanding of score preparation and presentation, not to mention musical structure. Apply yourself to score reading in a way that strengthens knowledge of the way music works, so you develop a universal understanding and appreciation of all music. And most important of all, develop your musical personality through the process of training your ear. Build that inner musical workshop, and supply it with the best tools you can find. All of this takes time, but it buys you the type of life equipment that never becomes obsolete, though it may need an update from time to time. Once you get a certain momentum going, then your new understanding of music adds to itself, using your own unique character and experience as a guide. That will only help you on the road to originality. Don't miss the next video, all about how to get your work performed by a real orchestra. Hope to see you there.